Today, I appreciate the opportunity of talking with Holly Curtis. Holly is a certified dream manager, but in addition to that, she's an NLP certified grief counselor, corporate culture coach, and has worked with clients with C-suite. And now we have the opportunity to start talking about what she does and how she does that. So some of the concepts we're going to talk about today is Dream Manager, what it is, and corporate culture, what it is, and grief counseling. All of those wrapped up to one. We've got several points we're going to do today, and we've talked about each one of those points could be a podcast in their own. And we're also discussing a series of doing those as a series of podcasts. So today is going to be fast and furious to try to get these things going. So with that, let me introduce you to Holly Curtis. She owns a company to where she does this all the time, but she coordinates with C-suite. So Holly, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, it's nice to meet everybody. I do have a company, New Day Coaching and Recovery. I get to go in and work with companies on a corporate level, or they will hire me to come in and work with each of their employees doing things like Dream Manager. That has been our most recent thing that we've begun doing. So I will go in and they will set me up with a cohort of 10 to 20 or more people, and we'll start doing Dream Manager, which is something I absolutely believe in and love doing. And then with that, I also work with the executives. I help working with profiling of hiring and firing and whatever we need to do to get the team actually to its best set team and functioning at its best. And so I am able to help the employees rise to their best selves so that they have healthy employees in the company. And then we're able to get the executives to their healthy best and knowing what they really want for themselves and for the company. And then I just sort of facilitate all that to happen. So I'm kind of the fly on the wall that knows everything going on, and I can help people rise to their best, but then through that, help the company rise to its best. And I do. I use NLP grief management, which is a big thing for healing. And then I bring in Dream Manager. I've got EMDR and even a little wonderful certifications in ADD, because between that and control, we've got all kinds of fun personalities on teams. And so I get to help implement a lot of that.
Well, today we're going to be talking about the unlocking of the power of dreams, how to help people achieve personal and professional breakthroughs. So we're going to explore the incredible impact of dream management and ask the people in the audience, have they ever considered how their personal dreams can fuel their personal success? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you. Unlocking the power of dreams.
Over to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so today what we're going to be talking about with unlocking dreams, most people don't remember that they need to dream. And so we have an entire culture that is either in la la land dreaming and not putting any feet to it, or we have people showing up to work and just doing the mundane surviving. And so what I get to come in and help companies do is get that morale going again, get the excitement going, because they show their employees that they care by giving them this Dream Manager program. With the Dream Manager, we're taking that toxicity that sometimes is in the office because people have things that they bring to the table that are old things or things they're going through right now. And it's taught them the wrong ways to communicate or not the most effective ways to be living their life. And so they're just day by day getting through. So the idea is if we can bring in not only the concept of dreams, getting people dreaming again from all levels of the company and personally achieving these dreams within 1 year, which we do, and that's very exciting. But in that time of getting these dreams happening and getting people back into understanding what that means, we're also working on every single area of life. Because to get your dreams to happen, you have to get into good habits. You need to live intentionally. You need to live with purpose. And that is what a lot of people have lost. They're surviving, not thriving. So I get to come in and I get to show them what it looks like to dream again. People will try to set goals. Goals do not do it. Goals are the steps to get to your dream, but we need to ask people on a personal level and companies on an executive level, what is the end result that you're trying to get to? Then we'll set our goals. So that's how bringing dreams into it makes such a difference. If you can get a healthy team of people who are excited to be living, they've got purpose again, and you can also look at what the company wants to dream and do, you have an entirely different company now. It is healthy, it is thriving, and it's moving forward.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to go to the next segment of our TV show here, and that is the culture shift. The culture shift, transforming toxic work environments into thriving communities. What makes a workplace thrive? You talked about thriving in 25. I think that's a great effort to go. Today, we're diving into the how to identify toxic cultures, and more importantly, how to shift them. Tell us how you go in to shift a toxic culture into something that people feel valued, heard, and empowered.
So when I go into a company, something that I often see that's a very toxic environment is that a lot of people do not feel heard and a lot of people do not feel appreciated. They either feel like there's no one to talk to or they're starting to talk to their team members and they're going in and it's starting to create a toxic situation. Also, a lot of people do not know how to communicate. So they either are overemphasizing the things that are going on, it's becoming a dramatic situation amongst teams, or they hide from a difficult situation and people are not going in and dealing with the boundaries that need to be set in the office because they don't want to approach that and offend anybody. So all of these can create toxic situations. There's also a lot of people taking advantage of some of the freedoms of working from home and different things like that. So what I go in and do is we're going to work with individuals, again, all levels of the company, to find out why they communicate the way they do, why they react the way they do, what it is that moves them and why they behave the way they do. We're going to look at those behaviors in all different ways of personality, past core beliefs that happen to them all the way back to children, because what we learned as a child is what we're going to do is what we're still doing in our 40s and 50s. And so we've got to go in and go, why does that person act that way? How do we help them heal from the things that are not helping them? A lot of people have core beliefs that are still hindering them. It's not working for them anymore. So we're going to go in and do that work to find out what that is and reset new beliefs for them. Teach them how to communicate, teach them how to react from the core, not just on a surface level. When we start doing that, people start having the same language in the office. They understand that we're all trying to get authentic. We're all real here. We're trying to figure out how to better our personalities, better our techniques, and I give them the actual tools to do that. And then I oversee basically how they play together. And then I evaluate that and we go in and keep rising that to a thriving community. Plus bringing in dreams and futuristic dreams for that and the goals to meet them for the team and the personal people. We're able to get this group in a much more positive, supportive atmosphere. So all of that starts moving us from toxic to thriving.
Recently you worked with a company that was being sold. And if you shared with me that the PE firm, private equity firm that bought them, discussed with the president of that company what they thought about the culture of that company after you'd worked with them for a year. Can you share that?
Absolutely. When they were being bought out, one of their biggest selling points to the buyer was the fact that they had Dream Manager in there. Being able to come in and see the buyers came in and saw that these employees felt cared about. They felt like the company was actually caring if they were succeeding in their personal life, and it made them that much more excited to be loyal to and pouring into the company that they're working at. They had also encouraged the meetings changed, the productivity in our meetings changed because of communication. They started learning personality and not just take a personality test, but how do we apply that to better our personality? Not just say, this is who I am, but exactly what do we need to grow? They saw all of this make such a change over the year that they actually had employees excited to come to work. They also were able to find out which employees needed to be moving in different areas because we were able to see better what their skill set was and where they would be happier, what they really wanted. So we were able to plug them in. And when people are in the position in the company they actually want to be in, they're going to give more. So they saw all of this. And that was honestly, they said walking away, their biggest selling point to buying that company.
And if I remember correctly, they mentioned that they were looking at several companies to buy, but this one remained at the top of their list and ultimately was sold for over $100 million because of the culture of the company.
Very much so. And that price did rise up. They had a couple people interested. They ended up selling for much more than they thought they were going to. And the culture was probably the biggest selling. It's an international company, so culture matters. We need to be able to not only get along in our little team, but teams across the globe. And so that was amazing to them that they had found a way to incorporate that. And they let me work with their executive team, so the executives knew what the employees needed. It was just a very well communicated system.
Well, healing is in the spotlight. Personal stories of grief and transformation. Grief's a universal experience, yet it often feels so isolating. Today, we're shining a light on personal stories of loss and healing, reminding that you're never alone. What did you see when you went in to work with executives and people at the entry level? What was your experience in the companies that you've dealt with?
Across the board, the same thing that I see with grief whenever I work with this is that everyone experiences grief. People think that grief is something that is just when we lose a loved one or perhaps go through a divorce. But honestly, grief is anytime there's any change, any conflict. Like, I'm excited about a promotion, but I'm also terrified about the new thing that I'm going to be doing, or any loss. Anytime we have these things, we actually have, and I love all the science behind it, we have an energy that actually comes off of us, and that energy needs to go somewhere. And the majority of us don't know how to process grief. We've not been given the very, very simple tools that I get to bring people to go back and process grief that has already happened in their lives and is affecting their decision-making, their productivity, they're reaching their dreams and their success. It's also affecting them in the moment when things are happening in that day. They're reacting not how they'd like to, or not accomplishing what they would like to. So for us to go back and show them, this is how you process grief, so that they're not putting that energy into the wrong places. That's when you have difficulty happening in their lives with relationships, with personal accomplishment, even just getting out of bed in the morning. And every person at every level, I don't care how high up in the company you are, you deal with grief. You have changes, you have losses, even loss of expectation. And these things affect a person emotionally, mentally, and in their success. And so if we can go back and help people learn how to process old grief so they're healed, and process grief that's happening every day in the moment, and they can hit it dead on instead of carrying it with them, you have people ready to actually move forward. They can be present in the moment to be more accomplishing at what they're doing, and they can actually dream to go in a direction with their personal life and then in their career. And so healing is so important. How do you move forward if you haven't healed from what's been? So I incorporate that into the beginning of Dream Manager for every single person.
Well, it sounds like you're helping them start look inward so that they can start working outward with new outlook.
Yes.
All right, dream-driven company. How does empowering employee goals drive business success? How does that do that? What is your company could grow just because of revenue, but in personal success? You know, we've heard several coaches saying it's not just winning, it's how you win. And that, I think, drives into a company as well. That you've got several clients you work with now that have tremendous camaraderie in the company versus some that you work with that don't. Can you share a little bit about empowering employee goals?
Absolutely. When we have a company bring in something like Dream Manager, in the beginning, the employees have no idea what's going on with this, but they get started. And when they start having transformation, because what it does is truly transform these lives. This is not something that just accomplishes one dream or helps people work on one area of their life. It actually hits every single area of their personal life. It helps them accomplish multiple dreams in 1 year. And what we start to see is not only are they becoming a healthier version of themselves, they know more what they want, they know who they want to be. And when that's happening across the company, it's allowing everyone to give support and encouragement in that. And so it brings in an authenticity to the room where we're not trying to fake who we are, we're actually trying to become who we want to become. And so that does, it's a dream-driven company. It's an entirely different look of healthy people who are excited to come to work, excited to be alive. They're doing things that they're excited for. But part of that is realizing what they want. So each individual person, and then I also work with the company as an entity itself, we have to decide what is the dream first. What is the best version of you in 10 years look like? What is the best version of this company in 10 years look like? And we give every possible feat to that, down to every detail. Then we start backing it up and go, okay, in 10 years, if that's the dream, then what is it in 5 that we need to be doing? What do we need to be doing in 3, 2, and 1? So that then we're setting the goals that go straight to that dream. And what I love is when we do that, we actually half the time. Anyone that has a goal or a dream, goals moving to a dream in 10 years, we can half that to be happening in the next 2 to 5 years, because now we've identified what to do and everyone's on board and excited. So it brings this entire camaraderie of moving in that direction. Personally, they're excited for each other, but as a company as well. Going after those dreams is absolutely necessary, because it's not just we want to be a successful company or a successful person. Why? If you tell me that in 10 years you want the company to make this much money and have this many employees, why? Instead, I'd rather you to have a dream that in 10 years, this company is going to reach the community in these ways. It will have enough extra revenue or profit so that it can go to this and help in these other ways, or begin another company. Let's look at the why of what we want to accomplish, and then we'll look at the how. And so people get excited at the why much more than the how.
That's true in every aspect. One of the things that I shared with Tricia early as we were coming on, in the past, I've asked you to sit in the background and listen to interviews, or send an interview to you of someone that we were considering employee as an employee of the company or a contractor with the company or whatever. And my purpose is that after you look at it, you tell me who the person really is, as opposed to who they're telling me they are. And that comes into the training and background, primarily, I guess, through NLP. Share with how that helps you understand the background of a person, and who that person is individually. You're not looking at quality, you're looking at the quantity of what their background is, and then the quality of how that's put together. Share that with us.
Right. I mean, people can come in with a list of all the accomplishments they've been a part of, but at the end of the day, character is what matters. And when someone presents, they have people trained, they've learned how to answer questions and how to do things. What I want to know are the little nuances of how they're saying it. Language is a very big part. When we go in and work with a company and we're doing even dream work, we'll go in and look at how to change the entire company's language by changing personal language. So when I'm looking at an interview of something, so anyone's coming in to talk, I'm going to pay attention to every word they're saying, the way that they're saying it, their body language, these things. These are important for us. And when we're coming from an authentic place where we really know ourselves, we don't have to fake an interview. It's going to come through. The confidence is going to be there. If we are intentionally living our lives, we are going to be able to talk about that and give really clear answers. And so we're able to see that in a person. When someone, it used to be that companies wanted someone who could come in and just sound really smart, look smart, play the part, almost a narcissistic look. People don't want that anymore. The highest retention right now is for authenticity and opportunity. So when I'm looking at an interview for someone, I want to look at their authenticity. I would way rather have someone who can tell me, I don't know how to do that, but here's how I'll show you that I'll find out the answer, versus someone who acts like they know everything. And so even an employee wants to see that in their boss, someone hiring wants to see that. And so bringing in NLP, that's a way to watch people's nuances, understand personality. Even working with grief, I can read through when someone's lying to me. It's just something that we've come up with to try to protect ourselves or to look good, but it's way more important to actually be good, be in a good place, than to pretend to be one, a person in some successful position.
Well, I understand. We recently hired someone, and I sent all of the information over to Jason, and y'all listened to the interviews. And Jason said, "Okay, if Holly's good with this, I'm good with this. No, I don't even need to interview the person." So we have engaged in going forward. So thank you for that. One of the things that just constantly comes around, and I think this is going to be there all the time, and that is grief in the workplace. When we're at work, we're bringing everything we had from home with us. We don't leave it at the door when we leave the house. So we're bringing it into the office. So our personal grief is coming with us. And as you mentioned earlier in this conversation, that there's many things happening in the office for promotion, an issue, an employee confrontation, whatever, there's baggage in the workplace itself. So what are your thoughts on creating a compassionate and supportive culture in the business and the fact that grief doesn't stay at home? Companies create many environments, some that are toxic, some that are compassionate. Share what you've seen and what you can do to help them get there.
I think one of the most important things a company can do these days is to recognize the fact that part of their budget needs to go towards emotional and mental health. I think that is a very big first step for any company to be successful. Understand that, as you said, grief does not stay at home, it comes to work. Grief is not something, first of all, that I hear a lot of people say, well, I will grieve that for the rest of my life. That's actually not true to grief. Grief is a process that you're supposed to go through and get to the other side of. You may be sad or frustrated or have feelings, but grief is an actual process. So when people are given the tools to process through things, you're going to have them come out of it on the other side and hopefully in a much better mindset. What happens when people don't deal with their grief? And it could be past grief that people are still affected by how they make decisions in the workplace or personal from long gone past, or it could be something going on at home today, and it's difficult for them financially, relationship things. When they come to work with that, it affects things in ways like poor decision making. They can be easily offended. They can definitely not communicate in the team or be productive in their work. They don't see the future very well because they have what we call foggy brain. Whenever you are not processing through your grief, you're sitting in it and it's not doing you any good. The idea is to move through it. So what companies need to do is understand that helping their employees be the healthiest they can be is the best thing they can do for their productivity. So if you want to help your employees get healthy, they need a safe place to come and unload that. You do not want them unloading it in a meeting or in a cubicle or things like that, but they do need a safe place. Someone like me, I can come into the company and I am a safe third party that I don't report back to the main guys who have hired me. I can go report back to them overall. I'm seeing that you guys could implement this into your company or implement this program. And I think all of your employees would benefit from that, but I'm not going to break the confidentiality. So they can come and talk to someone like me, unload that. And because I'm aware of the company and the goals and dreams they have, I can then guide them in their personal life and how to be more productive at work. And so by doing this, you're just getting healthier people. Once people have gone through their processing of grief and they learn the tools how to do it on their own, they start getting better and better. I see this in companies. I've worked with people who have had all kinds of infrastructure issues within the team or just personal things happening at home. And both have to be addressed instead of ignored or put out there in the wrong kind of light. And having a third private party helps them be able to do that in a really effective way.
Well, that sounds good. And we're going to have a quick break here for Jeffrey Hazlitt. And then we're going to turn back around to the next question. So let's come back from setback to comeback. Stories overcoming life's toughest challenges and helping bring you from, I have had a problem, a major thing in my life. All of us have had disappointments. We've had things happen to us that we had bad reactions. We had difficulty that we can't find forgiveness for something, whatever that might be. And then we have to figure out how to move away from that and come back. So let's talk about overcoming life's challenges. Everyone faces them. How do we share powerful stories with people who turn life's toughest challenges into victories? What are you facing personal structures and hurdles and things of this nature to leave you inspired when you come out of a meeting with them or you bring them out of the meeting to be inspired? Let's share that from setback to comeback.
So when we're looking at setbacks, just like with everyone shows up to work, they bring grief with them. They don't leave it at home. Setbacks happen in personal life and at work for everyone, no matter what place you're in the company. So when setbacks happen, we have to take an honest look at them. A lot of times what people want to do is just push past it and jump to the next thing, and they don't really review over it. So we need to go back, be honest about the setback, our responsibility in it, others' responsibility, check out what's going on with us, what even got us in this position, and find out where this kind of originated and do the work on the setback without any fear of what that's going to bring to light. Really being authentic and honest means that we're going to look at this in all realms of it so that we know what to do with it. From there, we're then going to do the work. We're going to grieve what did not go right. We're going to start looking at how to make that correct and start moving in a direction of overcoming that challenge. So the healing part is always first, but then after that is one of the biggest parts, and it works with Dream Manager, but it's anything I do with companies, is the fact that small steps make big changes. So the way to overcome a setback is to identify what really happened, put the responsibility in all the places it really belongs, and then to take small steps each day. So when I work with people, I actually look at every single part of their life. We don't look in one area. Same with a setback. We're not going to focus and hone in on it. We're going to look at the big picture. And looking at the big picture, where can we have growth in small ways every single day? That is the most important part. And those small steps will then turn into big changes. When I work with a company, what's really interesting is it can take 3 weeks to 2 months where people are just implementing these small steps and they think I'm crazy that this is never going to make the big change they need. And then we hit months 3, 4, and 5, and it's a complete turnaround. And you have that comeback. And by 6 months to a year, it's a full comeback. 6 months to a year is just pushing that comeback into place, but it's already been reset. So it's doing that work ahead of time and then just implementing it in these small changes that we make. And I give people exactly what those need to be. They just have to go do them.
Well, one of the things that comes around to me in this is I mentioned a minute ago, forgiveness. Forgiveness helps you break the chains, and the chains are on you, not on them. It's one of those things of the key points of forgiveness. Don't tell anybody else what they did. Don't let them be afraid of me because of what they did to me. If I'm going to be retaliatory, they're never going to let it go. I'm never going to let it go. And don't be terming them of what they did. Don't be telling or terming them out or making decisions on what they did, and let them save face. Walk away from it and let the other person save face. If you've got forgiveness, you walk away from it and protect them from their darkest secrets. In the situation that I've seen in the past and deal with today, is that this happened. I know it happened. I'm not going to discuss it with anybody else. Now, if I'm going to live with that, I just did what you were talking about, and I have a setback. If I'm going to forgive it, I'm going to move forward and start moving to a comeback. What are your thoughts on that?
I completely agree. Something that I really work with people on is the fact that, we see a lot of books that say you have to forgive, you have to forgive. We do need to forgive. That is incredibly freeing for everyone, especially the person forgiving. But what we actually have to do before we forgive is apologize. So I will not let someone walk through a forgive until they've apologized first. They sometimes apologize to the person. Sometimes we just apologize in a journal. It's just walking through an apology. But what that's about is taking responsibility. So we have to take responsibility for any part we had in it, because in every situation, in any team meeting, personal encounter, we always have at least 1% responsibility. Once we look at that honestly and we look at our responsibility, then we're able to look at their responsibility and we can truly apologize and we can truly forgive. And that is how we move forward. It's getting complete with the situation that happened so that we can move on from it. When we don't do both of those pieces, people may move on and act like they're okay with it, but they're not okay with it. It's going to linger. It's going to affect their decision making. It's going to affect, again, how they're reacting and responding to people and their behavior. So we have to walk through a healing process, but it doesn't take long. It just takes willingness.
I agree with that. And then, coming to some of the subject matter we were talking about earlier, how do we respond in that comeback, that setback, and step forward with getting through the problem and now turning outward to come back? What are the victories and things that you've dealt with in some of your recent conversations of how someone turned their struggle, whatever personal struggle it was, and that's not for discussion here, how did they turn that around and come back and be forceful with their life?
Okay, so I do actually have a really good example. I was working with one particular company. Teams had changed. Who was in charge of whom had shifted. And within that, there became problems, right? There were people not getting along. When I had one specific employee feel that another employee was treating her badly, We walked through the process of grief. We grieved what that felt like for her. We walked through her responsibility in it and what was his responsibility. When we looked at her responsibility, she started to recognize how much she was allowing it to affect her. She was realizing that she had been passive aggressive in some situations in the past that had set her up for the ability to be treated this way now. So we were able to grieve that and then go, okay, what are your next steps? How do we start improving your relations with other people so that you don't put yourself in this position again? Then we also walked through, okay, what steps outwardly? Those are the inward changes we needed to make. And we kept making steps in that direction. Outwardly, what do we need to do? Well, you need to meet with this particular person. So I helped her prep. Not only did I ask her, you need to schedule that meeting this week, which normally she would have been terrified to do, but she had to answer to me. So she had to schedule the appointment with her, the meeting with her boss. Once she scheduled it, we set her up. She got to run through the meeting with me first so that I could say, no, that's not the thing to say. How about we walk through this so that she could present what needed to change or what was affecting her negatively to the boss in a productive way. After the meeting with her boss, she came back to me. We got to process through how that meeting went. Inevitably, what ended up happening in that situation is she was eventually heard very quickly. They made moves within the team, which was wonderful. And they found out that other people were also feeling the same way. So I was able to help her personally, but it also made an outward effect within that team and that area of the company.
Well, that perfectly ties into the next thought that I had for is the ripple effect. You know, when you just described the ripple effect of how personal growth transforms teams and organizations. And in this particular case, that one individual uh, was the catalyst, apparently, that put a force that transformed that entire group that you were talking to. Let's talk about those personal victories and how they create massive cultural shifts. Let's stick around and dive into that story and a little bit more of where it went next.
I think that's a great idea. I think that what happens with ripple effect is that even this one instance that I described with the woman who was struggling on her team, she was ready to quit the company, which is really sad because she actually really loves working for this company, but she felt trapped. And I think that's a really big thing. Again, going back to people not feeling heard, or they don't know where to express it, or they don't know how. And so they just sit in a situation that they're not comfortable in. So having a third party to help them walk through that and work through that helps not only that person know how to address it, how to approach it, and then we're working on them becoming a better version of themselves. They're going to go and put that out there. It's going to then be seen by other people and inspire other people. When she did this, it has now inspired other people to recognize, I do want to approach it, but I want to approach it correctly. The more that we can have that ripple effect where it is sometimes opening executives' eyes to what's going on in teams because someone has the tools to know how to approach it. We actually have things now established in that company that are check-ins, and they know how to do so in a safe manner. That is causing the people on all levels within that company to feel safer to come forward with the things that they're struggling in. That then lets the executives know what's really going on. So when they're trying to create new programs or let's say sell a company, they know what's really going on within the company because it is going from one level all the way to the top. Then of course it goes from the top to the bottom. Right? So the ripple effect is when you have executives who are getting healthy, they are being authentic, they are being real. They're not going to come pour their life out to you, but they are addressing things as they need to be addressed and in a healthier manner because now they're healthier. The people underneath them, the vice presidents, are now doing that, and they're allowed to do it in their meetings. In fact, it's encouraged, and then it is to the employees. So for example, I have executives now that are CEO president level, and as I got them healthier, and they did the work, our vice presidents now, they started giving them mental health days because they realized how much they needed it. Now their vice presidents are getting it. And now they're figuring out how to implement hours off during the week for their employees to take just a moment to regroup, reboot. And so because they got healthy at the top, they started realizing what their employees rippling down also needed.
Well, you know, one of these things that I've got a client right now I'm talking to. He has multiple issues, but primarily driven by growth. And growth always sounds like a good thing. But when you have growth, you also have the same problems that you had before the growth and you just compounded them. Whatever it was, you need more of this, more of that, more people, more whatever it might be. And if you haven't prepared that structure, then the infrastructure of the company itself is attacked by that. So I bring that back around for the area of redefining success, balancing achievement, purpose, and emotional well-being. What does success truly mean? Is a title, paycheck, or something deeper? Why don't you dive into what is success from your viewpoint and what you put out to the clients and the people that you talk to?
Well, and even addressing your first point before I answer success with the growth, I'm working with a company who's dealing with just that. I've seen it before with other companies where with the growth, you have a lot of stuck mindsets of we were smaller. I'm scared to hire more people or how to grow that infrastructure. So one thing that's wonderful is working with people in the executive field to help them overcome those fears of when they were a little bit smaller and they had to be more careful and wear more hats. Now that they're getting bigger, I get to help them work on breaking those concerns and fears so that they can do the growth that needs to happen, but also focusing on the fact that if we know what's going on with all employees, we know where in the areas that need hiring, they need growth. So that kind of communication is also helpful for a successful company. When it comes to success as a company, but also as an individual, one of the most important things that I always recognize is asking someone, how do you define success? And I think what happens for a lot of people is they may have defined success when they were 25 years old. I have a vice president right now. She is amazing. And she came to me just recently and they had offered to her, where are you trying to go in the company? What do you want to do? And her answer was become president. Of course, that's what I'm working towards. But when I visited with her, I said the same thing that apparently the president did is really? Because that doesn't actually fit her whole value of life. She also is very important. It's important to her to be home for her family. She has hobbies that she's very interested in, and she's very interested in what she does at work. And what was happening is because somewhere along the line, as a woman, she learned, I've got to climb this ladder just like men do. We've got to climb a ladder, right? And we get to the top, that's success, but that isn't success for everyone. And so helping her recognize what do you really want out of life helped her learn that actually there was one area in that company she wanted to hone in on and do great at. So we've moved her into that area to really specify, gotten rid of all the rest. And that way she has more time for her family and other things that are in the big picture of life. Because of that, she's a better employee. This makes it more effective. I had a CEO who is running a company and making more and more money. And with each sale, he's making more. But in the reality, he's still coming to me and he is not happy. And it's because when he was very young, we realized that his father had said one statement to him as a child, and he decided this is what success was. But when he'd hit it, it was never enough. So we realized we needed to redefine success. And when he realized this number in my bank account is now success, and I have that, now he's backpacking through mountains and perfectly happy. So he works his job, but he realizes the company can grow, but he is actually content in what he's doing. So it's realizing this is our ceiling of success. When we hit that, we actually get to get excited. And anything beyond that is just wonderful. It's icing on the cake. So success is not always going. It's hitting something that you are aiming for and then setting new dreams and new expectations, but getting to be excited in the success you're actually already having.
Well, it sounds like you're rolling this into what I would say is the emotional well-being and defining your life purpose. Everybody that's on this call or this podcast, TV show, they all need to have a life purpose. But I venture to say that you run into probably a higher percentage of people that have no clue what their life purpose is, as opposed to getting dressed and going to work today or going wherever I need to be today. What would you say to that?
I'd say it's the number one problem. People don't know what they truly want. They've been so affected by society and what they put on us. They've been affected by, as a child, what a relative, a mom, dad, just somewhere down the road where they decided this is what I have to do to succeed, to be well off. And now they're still running in that race and it's not making them happy because they haven't stopped to go, is this still really what I want? Is this what I want for the company? Is this what I want for myself? And we have to be able to stop and do that and reevaluate. Once we do that, then people get excited. They step out of just, surviving day by day, paying a paycheck. I tell people, even in general, never make a paycheck to pay the bills, ever. You make a paycheck to help these children in this country, or you make a paycheck to support this over here, or to make your dreams come true, to go travel the world. That's what you work for. The paycheck should cover the bills in the meantime. It means you're always aiming a little bit higher, but for things that you're actually excited about. And people have forgotten how to do that. So not only have they forgotten to do it, then they go, yeah, that maybe sounds like a great idea, but I wouldn't know the first step. And they're very simple steps. So that's what I get to walk through with people, is actually helping them rediscover who they want to be, what they want to do, what they want this company to accomplish. Once we actually identify that, put it onto paper, now we know the goals to get there. And I walk with them through very, very simple steps that make very big changes.
How would you summarize what your objective is and what your success is and life purpose in regard to doing this with people?
I find this to be the most rewarding job I think anyone could do. I absolutely have the joy of watching people come in. They have very similar and yet very unique issues that they're walking through personally and at work. I get to help them actually discover that you don't have to cope. You don't have to cope with problems. You don't have to cope with difficulties in your life or things that you've got to come up with how to just work through that, live with it, push through. You actually can recover. You can recover from the things that have hurt you. You can recover from the things that aren't working for you. And you can actually start to decide and what you want in your life and be very intentional to make it happen without feeling completely like this is a mountain I have to tackle. It's just taking a hike step by step. And I get to watch people do that. So for me personally, my futuristic goal is and dreams are to affect as many people as I can with these simple tools. I think if people just have these and they have someone to walk with them for a short amount of time, I've watched them just take off with it. So at this point, what I love is I've gotten to watch hundreds and hundreds of people personally sit with me and completely turn their life around in 1 year. We do it in 6 months. The next 6 months, we're just driving it home. But I get to watch them completely change their life inside out, their thinking, the things that they do have control over, which is only 3 things, by the way: your thoughts, your words, and your actions. That's all you have control over. And once people take power over that and start making small changes, they stop trying to control everything else. And now they are internally strong, and therefore they are becoming externally strong in life. And that is the most exciting thing in the world. I love watching that and watching companies blossom.
Well, that's outstanding. I'm going to be opening this up for questions because we're about to run out of time here. Carrie, see you on here. Carrie, what questions might you have of Holly today?
Yeah, what are you thinking are the kind of long-term effects of COVID and how people are dealing with that kind of short-term and kind of long-term?
COVID has been a big one. I've seen companies, when COVID happened, a lot of companies had to shrink. And so now as they're having to grow again, they are just holding on to that fear of, don't get too big in case something happens again. So there's a lot of helping people recognize what they've been through, grieve that, process that, and then really enter into, okay, let's look at the honesty of where you're at today and what does that need? Let's quit living in the past and applying it to the present. So that's part of it. Another part that's been a big change is a lot more people working from home. For some companies, that's wonderful, but some people take a lot of advantage of that. And so what's really great is the more authentic we do get in communication in a company, the company is offering this to their employees, and now they're in better communication with each other. They're able to set boundaries a little bit better and actually, confront them, where they can say, I am here for you. That is difficult. We have this coach you can talk to. Meanwhile, you do still have to be there at Tuesday at 8. And so we're able to have those conversations where I think a lot of people got afraid to have the conversations, or they were so afraid of offending people, because we also have just a big shift in workforce.
And Isabella, do you have any questions for Holly today?
Yes. Thank you, Holly. It's been great to listen to you I mean, there's so much in your words to learn from. And I have a question. How do you get executives to trust the process of change in their culture? I mean, there's small steps, small goals, as you were saying, and I can see I'm eager executive to watch the KPIs go into the roof because they invested in mental health and they want to see how it's returning to them. And it's a business, I understand that, but how do you get them to trust into the process and to go along into the timing of change in people?
That's an excellent question. It's tough, right? So what I have found really works is the dynamic of working with the executives and the employees at the same time with a stream manager program. That's why I love it so much. Is that what happens is that I'm working with the dream managers themselves, or the executives, I'm sorry, themselves. We're getting them healthier. They're starting to see personal change for themselves. So it's not just something written on a paper. This is what we're doing for our employees. They see their own relationships, their own anxiety, their own finances getting better, right? So we're making their dreams come true and getting them in a healthier state so they know it works. That helps right there. It's a personal touch. Meanwhile, what's happening is because we're working with the employees, by about month 3, they're going to see productivity increase. It just does. I've now done this enough to see that it does. By month 6, you have people excited. They are excited and they will tell anybody. By months 5 and 6, these employees will talk to any executive or anyone coming in about what the company is doing for them. And so they're getting that feedback. So when I'm running Dream Manager, I will collect feedback every 3 months. It's that 5-6 month that they have. I mean, it's just typed out pages and pages of people off the charts of how their life is different and better, and they attribute it to the company. So they see that. Then those next 6 months, we are just implementing it more and more. And so again, productivity is going up, communications during meetings is better. They're just starting to hear the rumors of these things. They can add, now we've set up things where they're calling in to say, this is how it's going. So they're getting direct feedback. So between personal experience and that feedback, they're sold. So by year 2, time to sign a contract, they're excited. Yeah.
Thank you, Holly.
Sure.
Thank you. And Holly, just for a quick synopsis, can you take us through the 4 or 5 areas of Dream Manager? And you're not only talking to the people about their background and their hurts and wants and whatever. This goes into their financial wherewithal as well. And we're teaming up with banks here to help them financially. Can you, in a short span, and then I'm going to turn it over to Tricia here, can a short recap of what does the Dream Manager program consist of? And it doesn't have to be just Dream Manager. You do this with people on the norm on your own. So quick synopsis of what is Dream Manager?
So Dream Manager does exactly what I already do. It just does it in a very succinct way. So in 12 sessions, I will meet with someone once a month. And in each session, we are going over 4 pillars of life because you need to be balanced in all area. We're also hitting one direct area of life each month that is new and different. And so we're constantly keeping up with your relationships, your emotional side. We're keeping up with your intellect and making sure that you're growing emotionally, growing intellectually every single day. We look at spiritually, and that can cover any belief system that you're in. We're looking at how that can grow. And then we're looking at, well, my brain just went out, physical. So we're going to make sure that physically you're taking care of your body because we need to have the inside and out. But each month we're looking at different things. So we begin by just creating those dreams, finding them, but then we're going to move directly into financial. I spent about 2 months actually directly working with you on your finances, getting your budget, an actual budget, looking at how we can make that budget support your dreams. And everybody goes, there's no way, or we already have that down. I promise you, every person has an epiphany during this moment. And so we get those situated and going in the right direction. Then we move into looking at your personality. I do personality testing, but I'm not going to come back and say, hey, you're an MDJRP5, right? That's not the point. We do very specific testing that shows us where you are today, and it shows us where you need to develop. And we look at how you can develop to make those dreams come true better, but also to be a more healthy person. That is highly effective. I have one CEO that keeps the list next to his phone of all the things he needs to do better on his calls so that he can grow in that personality. So we look at that. We then move into time management and energy. People want more time. They don't have more time. But if we can plug in more energy producing things into our day, it actually makes us more productive in our time. So that's where we clean out everything from furniture in your house to files on your desk. We clean everything out so that things sucking your energy are gone, and we bring in energy producing things. We then go into really looking specifically again at your personal life with relationships, your intellect and how to build that. And then we look at career, your spirituality, and finally we look at your character, because at the end of the day, what parts of your character need to be further developed so that you can be a more effective person. So we are looking at your whole life. I will tell you to drink water all day long. I'm going to take some of your coffee away. Like, I'm all the way to those kind of details, all the way into how your father treated you as a child, and then all the way to what is your dream with your family, your work, your body, everything. We cover it all somehow in 1 year, and it's amazing.
All right. Well, Tricia, I would like to bring you back in for your own questions and thoughts, and let you circle this for a finale.
Thank you so much, Paul. And Holly, thank you so much for sharing your insight, your brilliance. I was delighted because the language you use are my love languages. And so much so, when you say love languages, people think all of the soft, warm, caring, support things that take into account people. But also the measures of success. That's real, that's concrete. That's something that I am so dedicated to equally, to the point where my podcast and TV show is called C-Suite Success with Trisha Ben, and it's all completely oriented to encouraging everyone to define what success is for them, because real success is way beyond the ridiculousness that we allow others to define for us. So I share that because I would love to hear how you work through the challenges of the systemic bias that people are operating in. I love the two examples you gave, the woman who wanted to be able to do this and the man, who wanted to do this. But the fact of the matter is you're working in an ecosystem where the systemic bias of women being very encouraged and supported to make sure that they're taking care of family, when obviously this is critically important to men as well, and they are not encouraged in the same way or judged in the same way. So I'm curious how you navigate this as our women leaders step up and learn the language to use to understand that it is not out of the realm of possibility to be the president or be the CEO or founder or whatever that title is, and also be very engaged and very much involved and enjoying and fulfilled by the family and personal side of their lives as well, as men have done for many years. I'm curious how you navigate that.
It's an interesting thing. I think being able to meet with each person individually, every 2 weeks or every month, what that does for me is gives me a personal touch with them. And so they start to build a trust with me, and trust is very important. And as we build that, then I'm able to really dig in and go, is that really what you want? And so there are very specific exercises I use. Some come from the grief, a little EMDR, and some NLP, definitely. And using these exercises, we can pretty quickly get that person to get out of their own way and find out what they really want in all of life, all of these areas. And once I help them identify that, then I'm able to keep encouraging them in that direction and helping them constantly step back to the bigger picture and recognize work, career is a part of the picture. Family is a part of the picture. Each one of these are a piece. Now, based on what their dreams are, we may go more full force into that career side because those are their bigger dreams. If their dream is to balance all of it somehow and be Superman and Superwoman, okay, great. Then I'm going to help you do that. I'm going to help you hone in to the one or two things you want to focus in on work, the 1 or 2 things that are your main objectives at home, and we're going to really focus in so we can do each one very well. And when they start seeing this is a part of my life, it is not my whole life, because people just get unbalanced. They go home and go, I have to do all that. And then they go to work and go, I have to do all that. And it's helping them retrain their brain to go, no, these are each a piece of it. And I want it to balance. I want it to blend well. And as silly as it sounds, working with them on these tiny steps of, I'm not even kidding, taking away some of their coffee, making them get up. I make every one of my clients take a meeting with themselves every single day. We meet with everyone else. If you don't take a 20-minute at least to an hour meeting with yourself to self-reflect or pray, to write in a journal, to read something intellectual for a few minutes, and to physically walk, stretch, do something. If you can't do that with yourself every day, you're not going to succeed. Not in all the ways that you would like to. By taking initiative in that one thing, once I finally get them to do, which by the way takes 2 or 3 months, once they finally do it, they take off. They realize making this change, I actually have more control over how I'm going to see this and how I'm going to handle it. And then they're able to go after it. And based on what we've discovered their dreams are, that's when we go full on for that presidency. Or we go, that's not really what I want. I want to make this much money, and what's going to bring me that so I can go backpacking through the Alps somewhere? What is it that's going to be my definition of success? And so I help them find that, and then they are doing better in each of those areas.
That's incredible, Holly. I so appreciate the insight, and it's something I'm noticing now. We have generations of women who've sat in those roles, and there are different, just simple frameworks that we can use as well, and that time to yourself is so powerful. That's been a major focus for me over the last, when you say 2 to 3 months, that is absolutely the time frame, because your schedule is mapped that far out. So anyway, I'm a Holly fan now, Paul. I'm a Paul fan, and obviously everybody here in C-Suite Support